Hello and welcome to this video. I'm doing one again about management of type 1 diabetes or diabetes in general, but how I manage and how I have been managing my diabetes. Enjoy! So one thing that they tell you very clearly when you become a diabetic is you have to manage your blood sugar levels. Now I've said this before in a video, but now I'm going to show you, because I've shown you the Libra, the thing that I have on my arm now. But before that, and I still sometimes do that just to check my sugar, is we check it with a blood sugar meter. So I will show you what that contains. You know, every diabetic gets this. On my medical aid, I get a new upgraded version for free. But if you lose your blood sugar meter, which luckily I haven't, but if you lose it, then you have to, go buy one, because it's very important to have one, to know what your sugar is if you don't have the Libra sensor or anything. So it's very important to have. So importantly, this is how it looks like. This is the actual blood sugar meter. You put a strip in there, one of the strips. Now there are different brands of strips. At the moment I am on Accu-Check Instant. For long I was on Accu-Check Active. Those were the first strips that I used, but this one is Accu-Check Instant. So you put a strip in the blood sugar meter, and then you use your the thing to prick your finger so that you get some blood and you get it on the strip. I will show you now how we do that. So we have our sugar meter. The strips are extremely small. They are this small, and at the bottom there's a little yellow part where the blood goes on. So we put that in the sugar meter, then it shows you have to put blood on. Then we take the prick. Normally it's just one that you can press there, and then you have your blood that you need to get out, and you put that on the strip like this. And normally I use I normally have a tissue with me to deal with the blood on my finger, but it's just such a small prick, it doesn't even hurt. And then it shows you your blood sugar very nicely. Mine is 4.8 at the moment, which is ironic because at the moment my Libra also says it's 5 or something. So the Libra is out by like the more accurate way is using your blood sugar meter. The Libra isn't 100% accurate. I'd say it's about 95% accurate, 90 to 95% accurate. For example, my Libra will now say, I think it says 5.2 the last time I checked. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very similar. It's not that different. Now, I think I've mentioned before that I was diagnosed in 2002. I was 15 years old and with type 1 diabetes. And at that point in your life, you don't necessarily, I was a very routine bound person. So for me, it was relatively easy to try and find times to check my sugar, because the Libra didn't exist then. So I had to check my sugar 3 or 4 times a day to check that it stayed correct. And in between, I didn't know what my sugar did. So the Libra was quite an eye-opener to see what my sugar actually does in between meals. Because I used to, before every meal, I would test my sugar, and then I would test it before I went to bed sometimes as well. Or test it before I went to bed and when I woke up in the morning. That was quite important because you get what we call the dawn phenomenon with blood sugar. Between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. your sugar spikes. And that is something that doctors don't completely know the reason for that, but a lot of the time it's because we eat carbs late at night. So carbs after 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock would give you a spike that time of the morning or later in the morning. But yeah, so it's quite something to adapt to test your sugar and to inject also. In the beginning, I only injected twice a day, but now I inject 4 times a day. And since I've been doing that for the last 15 years I think it was only about 5 years that I was on, or maybe 4 years that I was on 2 injections a day. When I started with the 4 injections a day, my sugar was much more stable, because then you inject before every meal and you inject in the evening. So you inject a short working, which works for what you eat, and you inject a long working, which works for 24 hours. What has happened before is that I either forget to test my sugar in the morning or the evening, and then my sugar goes very low because I inject too much. If I forgot to check my sugar in the morning, a lot of the time it was very low by 11 o'clock because I injected too much before I ate my breakfast. It also happened in the evening, and that's something that I think I mentioned Stephen sat with. Sorry, the chair's creaking. That Stephen sat with, because I didn't check my sugar before injecting at night, or before I injected for my evening meal. I didn't check my sugar, which means it was low already before I ate, so I injected too much. And that is something that happens. That's why it's better to check your sugar at least 3 to 4 times a day. But other things that also interfere with that is the fact that how many strips you get on, say you have medical aid, which I would suggest most diabetics get, because with medical aid I barely pay in for anything. I get all my insulin, all my strips, everything, and I get a blood sugar meter for free whenever there's a new upgraded version of the one I have. You get all of that for free if you have medical aid, a good medical aid. But if your medical aid doesn't pay for, say, that little holder that I showed in the previous segment, it has 50 strips in, which means it's enough for a month if you check your sugar once, and some days twice a day. What was nice about our medical aid, and I think it's with a lot it's like that, on chronic you can get 2 of those. So I've, for a long time now, for the last about 10 years, I got 2 of those holders per month, which means I could check my sugar 3, sometimes 4 times a day. You can also buy that. They're not that expensive here in South Africa to buy extra, but the idea is to get enough so you can check your sugar enough times a month. But yeah, that was also now made a bit easier with the Libra, but also the problem with the Libra is it's also not completely free. So there's always that challenge, cost and stuff like that, if you've got a metabolic condition like diabetes. So it becomes a challenge, and as I got older, it became more of a challenge, because as you get older, you drink more pills. So it's one of those things. But I think it is something you can adapt to it very easily, and I think I adapted to diabetes very easily. So with my insulin, because I have the 2 types of insulin, they have cartridges that needs to be changed. Now, this one, the short working insulin, does not need to be changed now. You can see there's still quite a lot of insulin in. But the long working insulin that I inject at night needs a new cartridge. So I'm just quickly going to show you how I do that. We buy the cartridges, and there's 5 in a holder. And then you also have to put a needle on, of course, because, you have to inject. So take the needle off first, and then just, turn it out, and the cartridge comes out like that, and it's empty. So, and then you have to put the new cartridge in, also get it in, and then we have to put the needle on. Now, putting the needle on is, it's not difficult. I mean, okay, I've done it for quite some time, so it's not difficult for me. Just push it in. There we go. And I always put the other one on top of the old needle so that I can just throw the old needle away. And yes, that has to happen every few weeks when my insulin is, done.